meeting to order. If we can, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Matheson? Mr. Payne?
Here.
Miss Reese?
Here.
Mr. Carlton?
Here. And if we can stand for a moment of silence, then I'm going to ask Dr. Long, if he would, to lead us in the pledge. Dr. Long?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we're here tonight with a regular board meeting, and I don't have anything as far as visitors or delegations. I do want to make an announcement that our board has been very honored. TSBA, the director, Northeast Tennessee director for TSBA, for all the school boards in Northeast Tennessee, was not reelected. I mean, I'm sorry for that. But the good thing is TSBA has asked Kevin Long, not Dr. Long, Kevin Long, to sit in as the Northeast Tennessee State Director.
Northeast Tennessee Director.
Right, until December of 2021. So that's going to be great for Johnson County, because I think Kevin will do a good job. You want to say anything?
Well, yeah, I'm just tickled. They called me about 2 weeks ago and offered it to me, and then they had to vote this past Saturday, and I'm just thrilled to be able to help them. I appreciate y'all's support. It won't affect anything here, so I'll still be here most of the time. So.
Well, we'll be proud to have somebody from Johnson County as the regional director.
Appreciate it.
All right, next item is our consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone wants to pull off and discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Mr. Long has made a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Payne has seconded it. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Here, yes.
Miss Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right. And the next item on our agenda is that we finally have a student board member here with us, and we're going to let her go first, and then if she wants, so that she doesn't have to be around anybody for very long, we'll let her step out unless you want to stay. Either way, you can do that. So Lauren Patterson, if you will, give us I think this is your first report, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you. All right, so though we've had a break from our current in-person schedule, exempting this week, we have been in school in person for about a month and it has been going wonderfully. Seniors have all taken the ACT either this past Tuesday or September 22nd. FAFSA is also open, and Senior FAFSA Night is currently scheduled for October 15th from 3:30 to 6:30. Any senior who has not completed the application for the Tennessee Promise must complete it as soon as possible and reach out to Gear Up if they need assistance. Gear Up is also providing college application aid books that, if completed and brought to the Gear Up room, seniors will receive a candy bar for their efforts. Homecoming dress-up days have also been moved to the week of the 12th, so the homecoming game will still be tomorrow with the crowning of our princess and queen. Be sure to come out and support our Longhorn football teams and the beautiful ladies selected for the court. Despite our temporary closure, our student clubs are thriving while following social distancing guidelines. The JCHS robotics teams had their first meetings this week. The JCHS theater department plans on a radio production for It's a Wonderful Life. The student council still plans on celebrating our monthly appreciation events. Senior quotes for the yearbook are due by October 31st with restrictions posted by the yearbook staff. Speaking of yearbook students, please don't forget to either mail in or go online to order your yearbook. Thank you all for your diligent efforts, students.
Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate that. All right, the next item on our agenda is a presentation of the report card by Dr. Stephen Long.
I do want to let you all just aware that normally we don't do this till November, but the report card is very short this year due to the fact that we wasn't in school to do assessments. So there's only really 2 categories, so they did release the report card early. So Dr. Long is going to share that information.
Mr. Sutherland's gonna put my PowerPoint up. It's hard to really justify calling it a PowerPoint. It has 2 whole slides. So if you'll go ahead and put it on slide number 2, Mr. Sutherland. Thank you. You can see there, literally our report card this year consisted of 2 pieces of data. The first one I want to talk about the most, the grad rate. I'll go ahead and talk about it first, the grad rate first. As you can see, it did drop to a 96.3. I went ahead and put 3 years up there, and that is right on par with where it fluctuates at, and it does fluctuate. When you're looking at the size of our graduating cohort last year, each student, and I don't want to relegate students to being a percentage number, but for the purpose of this, each student was about 0.8%. And so if we had someone that did not graduate right on time, or if they did not earn, it's on-time regular diplomas based on when you entered 9th grade. So when you enter 9th grade, you've got 4 years. If you graduate, or 8 semesters, if you graduate in that 9th semester, then you're not going to count as an on-time. You may graduate. Also, if they don't get a regular diploma, they don't count as a graduate, even if they do matriculate out of Johnson County High School. The state, I have long believed that's an egregious error on the part of the state, and they are correcting that beginning next year. Other types of diplomas, specifically the special education diploma, will count towards grad rate, as it should. So grad rate's pretty much on par with where it's been. 97.5 in the 6 years I've been down here is about as high as we've seen it, maybe 98. And then we've seen it dip as low as 92 one year, but that was sort of an outlier, but that's about where it stays. ReadyGrad. ReadyGrad's the newest measure that's on the report card. This is, I think, the 3rd year of it. And what it is it's a formula. You can be ReadyGrad 4 different ways. One is you score a 21 or above on the ACT. The other one, you have 4 early post-secondary opportunities. We call them EPSOs at the high school level. And those are the 2 primary ones that I want to focus on right now. The other ones, you can have 2 EPSOs and an industry cert. Is that right, Herbie?
Yes.
2 EPSOs and an industry cert. And then the other one involves the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. But what you've seen there in those 3 years of data, that is nothing but the percentage of students that earned a 21, because the state has not been recognizing our Virginia Highlands courses. Virginia High, and it hasn't been in place long enough for the vast majority of students to have amassed 4 of those, if that makes sense. We did get the problem corrected, but also, just to be real quick, I'll give you a long story, but I'll make it really brief. When we were applying for the last Gear Up grant, which, as you know, we got, the director of THEC, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, came and visited us. And Northeast State was there, and we sort of got a real strong feeling that day that we needed to be partnered with them. And that was communicated to us and to them. And so we have established that partnership. And what that does, the classes number 3 and 4 get pretty expensive, but classes number 1 and 2 are free. Every student can take 2 dual enrollment classes through Northeast State for free, completely free. So we expect that number to go up. So the dip that you see that year, from last year to this, and that's just, last year we had an unusually high, based on how we've been trending, we had an unusually high number of students score a 21 or higher on the ACT. This year, although that ACT didn't drop all that much, which I don't have the latest number on it yet, but it seemed to be pretty consistent. But the extremes were greater, so the number of students in the middle that were above 21 was less. And that's why you've got a 40 to a 26.
Is the fact that we didn't have school from March on any contributor to these numbers?
Should not be a contributor to these numbers, but I would make no prediction for next year's numbers other than to say they're going to be impacted.
Because
the
for
ACT composites and everything else are going to be
right,
impacted.
for a student who's taking the ACT, we haven't been in school since last March. We've been doing some virtual, been on again, off again. It's probably going to be difficult for them.
Yeah. I want to say, I want to thank Dr. Simcox Ms. Wills for doing a lot of work on the CARES grant. We spent some CARES money on ACT prep materials. We had a pretty good number of seniors take advantage of those, but they will be available to them until July. So even, we had an ACT test date this past week, and we only have 9 seniors remaining who need to take it, and there's another one on the 20th, so we think we can get all 9 of them hopefully on the 20th. But if they register and take it on a national date on a Saturday, those materials we bought will still be available to them through July. We also bought those materials for the juniors, and barring any unforeseen school closure or anything like that, we're going to actually take the juniors through the program during the school day to try to offset some of the damage of lost instructional time.
That's good, because ACT affects scholarships and college admissions and things like that, so.
Yeah. I know I sound like a broke record sometimes, because if we talk about data, I want to talk about ACT because it matters so much. But questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mark. All right, the next item is to approve a resolution of the Johnson County Board of Education in support of a moratorium on state standardized testing for the 2020-2021 school year.
Yes.
Dr. Simcox?
Yes, what I'm asking, and a lot of boards across the state are doing this, is sending just resolution letters to the state. I don't know how far it'll get, but I just feel very passionate about this, that if we do continue testing, and we're okay with continuing with the end of course assessments, but to do it more as a benchmark or a metrics to see where our students are, the learning loss that has occurred, but to not use it for accountability that would impact our teachers or our schools or our districts. So that's what this is saying, to please, just to please maybe recommend or suggest to the House and the Senate to relax those requirements on assessment for us for this year, for the 2021 school year.
Do you have the resolution that you can read?
Well, it's very long. I'll be happy to if you would like me
How
to.
many pages?
Well, let me read the last 2 bullet
Okay.
points. It's just saying that all the board members on this 8th day of October for the Johnson County Board of Education, there's 2 parts. 1, support and respectfully request a moratorium on state standardized testing and accountability associated with such testing for the 2021 school year, to include the end of the year exams and formative assessments throughout the year. That's just saying, we don't want them to be held accountable for the data. We do request, however, that if they do continue in such format, that the results of the testing be used as metrics of student progress rather than to determine district rankings and scoring statewide that will surely result from the inevitable disparity in learning methods that will be used across the state in light of COVID-19, and focus may be made on regroupment of students' academic and social emotional skills lost during the extended school closure.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve this resolution.
Okay, motion is made by Mr. Payne. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second from Ms. Reese. Any other questions? Anything else we need to discuss on this?
I just feel very passionate that, this is something that we need to, we don't mind to test our students. We want to see where they're at, the learning loss that's occurred, but we don't want our teachers and our schools to be held accountable for that information.
It'll be very unfair for a teacher.
Be extremely unfair,
evaluated.
especially this year where you have kids flowing back and forth on quarantine, virtual versus in person. It would just be very unfair to them.
Right, our teachers have done a good job trying to keep up.
They have.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. If you will, call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Miss Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item is to approve a resolution of the Johnson County Board of Education in support of a basic education program hold harmless legislation for the 2021-2022 school year.
Yes.
Dr. Simcox?
Yes, and I can speak on this one in depth because I am on the BEP board for the state board. And I do know this is our priority number 1 on our BEP committee. But again, this is resolution sent from directors across the state asking that, our BEP funding is based on our student enrollment. And, during the time of COVID, you've got students coming in and out versus if they're going to homeschool or they're going to virtual academies, but not to decrease our BEP funding for this year, for next year, because BEP is always a year behind. So to hold us harmless and keep us at the same amount that we were last year.
Okay, do we have a motion on this item?
Move we approve
Okay,
resolution.
Mr. Long has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Payne has made a second. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, if you will, call the roll, please.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Miss Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes. The next item on our agenda is information concerning the re-roofing of the Johnson County Senior Center. And in this one, Johnson County government will be responsible for the payment. So this isn't an actionable item, it's just information.
Right, this is similar to when they redid the bathrooms at the senior citizen building, because that is a Johnson County Board of Education building. They just wanted to make sure they had your permission to re-roof. There'll be no money that we are responsible for. They just would like permission to be able to do that since it is our building.
Let's get the whole, getting all of it.
I think it's just getting the senior citizen building. Am I correct, Mr. Smiley? I don't know that. That's really been Dustin Sheeran's been working on that, not Dustin Crumley, but it's my understanding it's just getting the senior citizen building. It's not getting Heritage Hall or our building. But I don't know that our building needs roofing.
I don't think so either.
We
Yeah.
don't need a vote on this, it's just, has
Just
anybody got
information.
any opposition to it? Okay, so. Next item is a review of our annual agenda.
Yes. That's just the annual agenda we approve every year that just has the breakdown of what we will be providing each month. It's very similar to what it's been in years past.
Okay, so that's just a review, we don't need any action on that. 5-year plan update.
And for the, part of the 5-year plan agenda for this month is, part of your all's 5-year plan is the annual agenda will be posted on the website. So now that that has been on here and discussed, Mr. Sutherland will get that posted on the website for people to be able to review our annual agenda.
Okay, and do you want to talk just a minute? I don't think we discussed it in any of our prior meetings on the new app for Johnson County Schools.
Yes, we are very excited. Mr. Long has it up right now. Again, I do want to thank Chase and Rob and Norm. Chase has done the brunt work on the app. We have our own app for Johnson County Schools. And I know when we had to send the announcement out Friday, if you had the app downloaded, it shot you out a notification. So, you can go to the App Store and type in Johnson County School System and download the app, and it's got a lot of pertinent information, sports related, academic related, and you'll get notifications based on when we're out of school and just daily updates.
So far to date, there's been 721 Apple devices that downloaded.
721 downloads. Good deal.
That's just Apple?
It just, he
That's
said,
just Apple.
that is Apple?
Yeah, we can't track Android, but that's 721 iPhones.
Okay.
Good deal. Between that and this live feed and where you can watch it afterwards, our information should be out there pretty readily accessible to everyone at any time and anywhere. Okay, the next item is maintenance vehicle discussion, and we're going to table that until the next meeting. That was a request of Mr. Matheson, and he couldn't be here with us tonight, so if there's no objection, I'm going to move on. The next item is to elect a new Tennessee Legislative Representative. That's TLN, actually Tennessee Legislative Network Representative. And this is a board member that helps track any legislative updates and reports that to the board. I think
it
currently
currently-
it's Ms. Reese. I think you've done a fine job.
I move that we just keep Miss Reese in there.
Yes, she does.
All right, so are there any other nominations? We got a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Miss Reese, Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton.
Yes, we appreciate her help on this. Really, when you think about it, between Dr. Simcox and Mr. Long and Ms. Reese, we're well represented on state committees. So Johnson County is definitely on the map, and our opinions are definitely listened to. So we appreciate everybody. Next item is a budget update. Ms. Litford.
Okay, we are meeting very early in the month, so I do not yet have revenue. But what you do have in front of you, the large packet, is the general purpose budget. And if you'll turn to the very last page, it will show you that the budget is 20.63% expended. Expenditures for the month of September were $1,570,120.81. The majority of that was salaries and wages. The bonus was paid to the non-certified employees on Friday, and they were all very appreciative of that. We had folks that wanted to say thank you to you all for that. And then also you have the local option sales tax and property tax collection. Just the single sheet. Remember, this is before the split has occurred. But taking a look at the sales tax collections, from last month, we are up $2,022. And from last year, we're actually up $46,904 from last year. But I do not have any information yet from property tax.
That's a pretty huge jump for July and August.
That's a large jump.
If
Yes.
that continues, that'll be good for Johnson County. Any other items?
Is that right?
Okay. And Dr. Simcox. So let's see, before we go to the director's report, I think right here we'll pull out and have a discussion of where we're at on schools.
Yes. And again, this is current as of about 4 o'clock today. So, not being in school this week, we've not had as many on quarantine due to that fact. But as of today, we do have 3 active cases in our school system. We have 7 active student cases and 9 active employee cases. So we have a total of 16 active cases that students and employees in our schools as of right now.
The first one you said was active, you mean new cases
New
today?
cases today, yes,
Three
which is
cases.
included into the 16, yeah, but 3 new today.
Okay.
Yes.
So the original, like the first 2 or 3 of those,
Mhm.
are they almost,
Some that we had that were active, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks ago, they are back.
okay.
Yes. Yes. On quarantine, as of today, we have 196 students that are quarantined. We have 28 employees that are quarantined. With that, remember, we're critical infrastructure, so some of those employees are continuing to work. Some of those employees are household contacts, so they cannot work, and they're out for 24 days. Our employees that can work, they're in isolation sort of for 14 days. But of those, it is important to stress, even though they may be a quarantined employee due to being a contact, and they can work, some of them can't because they do have children at home and they can't get childcare, so they're still having to remain at home even though they could work. But I guess an important information that I shared with the board earlier, based on returning students and staff that are either currently active or quarantined, Monday we have 132 of those that will be back in the school system.
So 132 of the 196?
Well, when you think about it, it's actually 240 because I've added the quarantine and the active together. So total right now that we have that are active cases and quarantined with students and staff is a total of 240 employees and students that are either quarantined or out because they're active. Of those 240, we have 132 that come off of that list on Monday.
Okay.
So after Monday, we would have 108. And
Yes.
then what about the rest of the week?
Tuesday, we have 5 that come off the list.
Okay.
On Wednesday, we have 63.
Okay.
On Thursday, we have 19. And on Friday, we have 6,
So that'll put us next
which is
Friday.
a total of 225 by next Friday that's currently on quarantine or active that will be back in the building.
So we'll be in the teens by the end of next week, provided nothing else.
Nothing happens, correct.
Let me ask you a question. Of the total positive cases
Mhm.
with the contact tracing,
Mhm.
has any of that come back that they contacted that through the schools?
Not to my knowledge. And
So
it-
it's all community-based contact?
It is all community-based contact. To my knowledge, Ms. Henley could not be here tonight, but I know Ms. Will speaks to her daily because she's her supervisor.
I do think that there has been a couple of students that come to school and that I do think that we've had a couple of
incidents that has been. In fact, today, I think that one of the positives came from a student that came to school positive. They didn't realize they were positive.
So they just found out today, based on when they were coming to school last week?
Yes,
Okay, so that's one.
that's one that I know of. We've not had very many at all.
And based on being in school at 100%, our cases, total cases were 16. But other than the one or two that you're talking about that could possibly, and unfortunately Wendy's not able to be here tonight, everyone else is community-based contact?
Yes, the majority are. Overwhelming majority.
One of the questions I have, what kind of things have you done this week with the schools getting ready for us to come back to school?
They have done deep cleaning in all the buildings Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of all classrooms, all bathrooms. Dustin's back there. He supervises custodians. If I leave something out, Dustin, please let me know. Cafeterias, hallways, being deep cleaning. Then they fogged all the buildings. So from today until Sunday, our buildings are closed because we don't want anyone in there because they have fogged every building just to try to keep it.
They fogged every room, office, everything on Wednesday.
So every room, office, everything has been fogged. So that's why we want our buildings to be shut down until Sunday.
What about our buses?
Same thing on the
They've all been-
buses.
All those been fogged as well.
Okay, buses have been cleaned and fogged.
Yes.
But somebody asked me, the driver is cleaning in between runs, correct? Okay. Somebody asked me, and I said,
After morning route, they
clean,
disinfect, and after evening route, they disinfect.
disinfect. Okay, I told them that's what was going on.
Yes,
Because I felt sure it was. I had never asked that question, but I felt sure that's what was going on, so.
yes.
Any other questions? So, we're ready to go back to school Monday?
We are ready to go back to school Monday. You know, the issue was we just didn't have enough coverage for our staff that was out. The huge number that's coming back Monday, you know, definitely will help. And Angie did do another substitute training this week. She had 8 show up for that, so we have some more subs, and she's going to try to do another one in the next few weeks. So,
Yes.
you know, please, if there's anybody that would love to be a substitute teacher, please reach out to Angie because you are needed.
Do you have a problem because of the COVID, afraid to go?
There are some of our subs that typically work are afraid to work right now, and it's mostly some of our very dependable subs, but they're older,
Yeah.
and so they may have compromised immune systems,
Right.
so they are a little bit afraid. I have had a couple reach out and said, if things would just die down a little bit, and so hopefully after this break, that's helped us a little bit, that they're thinking about trying to come back to work.
Well, since we're gonna have 225 people leave back by Friday, do you
Mhm.
think we should just stay closed till Friday? Till
I
kind
don't.
of keep things died down?
That takes away from our days.
I know, but if we don't, I'm afraid we're gonna be taken away from days later on.
We do have, one of the things to note is no matter what, even though we signed this resolution, I don't know what the state's going to say on assessment. And our high school does start EOCs the end of November. So that would be 2 weeks worth of learning loss for our kids that are going to be taking an assessment in 6 weeks.
What would be the benefit of waiting until Friday? I mean, we've got folks in quarantine, so
Yeah,
they're
we're gonna
not,
have 225 people come back, and this thing, it seemed like it's taken 14 days for it to work its course. So I think another week of just keeping everything shut down would really help. Just from what I'm hearing, I'm no expert, but, and I hate to extend everything, but
but what would it benefit us? The ones who we think might be positive are in quarantine, so they're not in the schools. Now, they'll be back Friday out of quarantine, but for this week, going back to school, those people who are on quarantine will still be out, so they're not going to be bringing it to school, I guess is my point.
This 14-day quarantine or 24?
Some's
think they're
24,
both,
but
There's some of both. I don't have the breakdown of who comes back.
Okay.
Yeah.
The people that have just been diagnosed this week, now, are those still no contact?
Yes.
You know, have you, okay. So we shouldn't have any more under quarantine based on the new cases this week, or do we?
Correct. No, we should not, because they're not in school, so they're not
Okay.
around students or, anyone to be quarantined.
but if that's a teacher that has a spouse or a child that's a close contact, then they're out for 24 days.
Correct.
But by Friday, they'll only be in the teens.
Yeah, that's 225 possible cases. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
possible
but they're not in
case.
school, so they're not contacting anybody in the school because they're on quarantine and they're out of the school.
That's 225 people that could have been in contact with someone else to spread this thing.
But that's true, but they're in quarantine for the full amount of time, so that exposure is already out of the school and they're already being quarantined. And at the end of the week, or at the end of their quarantine, as this comes off, those people then are clear to come back. So it's not like there's gonna be, it's not like this group that's quarantined is gonna cause an issue in the schools because they're already out of the schools. And their quarantines are up and they've contact traced. So as they contact trace all these people, then they're finding out, I've had exposure to Kevin, so Kevin can't be in, so Kevin's not gonna be at school to cause a problem.
How many teachers do we still have that are active or under quarantine?
Well, mine breaks down employee, so I don't know teacher
Oh.
versus
Oh.
assistant versus, they might be a custodian.
But your total number,
Well,
Total number that are active employee cases,
28.
well, active employee cases is 9, but quarantined is 28. But I do know that 2 of those are household contacts.
Okay.
I know one of them, one of them comes back Monday.
2 of the 9?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 of the 2 that are quarantined.
Okay.
I think our quarantine's working, obviously. Especially when you look at some of the other outbreaks in the community, our quarantine's been working, doing what it's supposed to do.
I think it's important to note too, Mr. Payne, that 132 of those will be back on Monday. So we do get a majority, a huge majority of those back on Monday.
Any other concerns, or Mr. Payne's made a point? Anybody?
I just don't feel comfortable coming back for a while. I don't know.
We're gonna have
I hate to come
COVID
back
around.
and then have to shut down again.
Well, but we may have to do this back and forth because COVID isn't going away. And, we can't, I know for the people who've talked to me, the issue is we can't put kids out of school longer. We've already seen what it's doing. And, it's going to have a long-term impact. With the quarantine, and I want to congratulate the schools because I think they've done a good job. The quarantine is not really a number, let's see how to put this. The quarantine is not really a number that is a negative thing. The positive cases are a negative thing. The quarantine is our protection of everybody else, overprotection in a lot of cases of everybody else. The number that we look at really should be that 16. And many of those are coming from the community. So this isn't going to go away. Whether we shut down for another week or another 2 weeks, this isn't going to go away and it's going to come back because right now you got a big outbreak in the community. So.
Yeah, 2 months from now, we'll be shut down for flu, so, or possibly.
Well, one of the things I think that's going to help us in the flu season is if we continue to wear masks. Because, flu is going to stop that. And I would encourage for the schools to make sure that we continue. I know there's not a mask mandate in Johnson County anymore. That's unfortunate, but for the schools, we've got to continue that mask, and you can't wear your mask like this. This is it's a respiratory issue. So if you got your nose sticking out, whether you got your mouth covered or not, you're breathing it in through your nose and you're gonna catch it.
Yeah, that part of our school.
It's part of our critical infrastructure.
Critical
Yes, students
infrastructure,
and
yeah,
staff
wear
have
the
to wear
mask.
masks.
The other thing is keeping your hands washed, because if you take your hands and you got it, and you put it to your eyes, it's gonna, your mucous membranes in your eyes are gonna absorb it just like that too, so. As long as we continue to do what we're doing.
One more thing, let me bring up, there was a lot of teachers and parents had plans for next week anyway. And I think they're gonna go virtual anyway, right?
With the ones that I have talked to, and there's not been a lot that has reached out to me, but because they already had plans in place, then they'll just go, they won't go to the virtual teacher, they'll just be as if they were quarantined, and they'll stay with their teacher, but they'll just do their work on platforms online.
And that's not gonna,
What about the teachers?
The teachers, I've only had 2 reach out to me
Okay,
that said they already had plans and they could not, so we've worked with them. I've only had 2 reach out to me, so. But we have worked with those that already had, plans put in place that they couldn't get out of.
the other thing I have too is our attendance policy. It's, I've mentioned that 2 or 3 times. We need to do, I don't know how to change it. I don't know what other counties are doing. I know
Edna?
they've got to be fudging the numbers somehow or another.
Yeah, we have talked about that. We had a call with Senator Blackburn yesterday on that very matter, all the directors in Northeast Tennessee, as far as the chronic absenteeism. And we've stressed to our teachers, if they're virtual, they're coded as a D, and they're missing their assignments is part of what's going to get their grade, not the fact that they're not doing it. So we're not really focusing on attendance per se, especially with the virtual kids. It's, are you doing your work? If you're not doing your assignments, then you're getting a 0. But we're not counting attendance really on those kids, because that would be hard to do. And it's like
Yeah.
you said, in this time of unknown, the attendance is going to be bad this year, but it's going to be bad across the state.
Well, so what about a parent that says, I'm not sending my kid this week because, or say Monday and Tuesday because of he's got a runny nose and because you're gonna send him home anyway.
Right.
Does that count against him?
It does not count again. Well, it counts because the nurses send them home or they're being symptomatic, so we have to count it on chronic and absenteeism, but we're not counting it per se as an unexcused absence because they are being sent home by the nurse.
I have asked the nurses, and I've talked to Wendy, if the nurses send them home, we are not, it's usually put in as a nurse excused absence. They are to go in and code it as D immediately, just as distance learning. If the nurses tell them to stay at home for a certain length of time, we're coding it D as distance learning. Right now, those that have unexcused absences are those that simply are not coming to school. And we do have.
I mean,
or doing their work online, right?
No, they don't get, that, doing their work doesn't have anything to do with an unexcused absence. If they're not doing their work, then that's just gonna show up in their grades, and they can potentially fail. Jesse and I have gone in, and can I please take this?
yes.
Jesse and I have gone in and we have done all of the schools except for the high school. We have coded every single student as a D from August the 17th through September the 15th. And then if they were virtual, but they put them in as unexcused because they didn't turn their work, we went in and we changed those to a D per what we had talked about, that going towards the grades and not attendance. The only school, and I have tried to work on the high school, and I have talked with Skyward, I have talked with Priscilla Davis at the high school. The high school is giving me a fit because I can go in and change their absences. And out of the other day, I had worked on 36 students, and it messed up 15 out of those 36 students' absences. It would just, when I went in to code them as D, it would code them as D for maybe 3 out of the 5 classes, and then it wouldn't put anything on the other 2.
And Skyward is our system
The high
management.
school isn't
so-
giving you a fit, it's the high school
It's the
system.
It's the
platform.
system.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I should say, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But it's, so, Skyward says I need to meet with Miss Davis and we need to check on their schedules and you have to have, every student has to have every minute of every day in Skyward and in EIS. And if you don't, it can mess up everything. So I'm meeting with Miss Davis next week to see what's going on.
Because that's where they pull to make sure that our kids are actually sitting in a seat for 6.5 hours a day,
Right.
is they pull it through Skyward and EIS. So we have to make sure that that's correct. That's how they see we're in school 6.5 hours a day.
Okay.
So
I
if,
was just-
let's say if a student is sent home that they test positive, and they go home and they're on virtual, but they feel bad for 2 days and just don't feel like doing anything. Then on day 3, they start feeling better and they go in and do 2 days' work, then the next day they do 2 days' work. Do they still count it absent for 2 days?
No, we don't count. It's based
Okay.
on what they do as far as their coursework.
Okay.
We did change that. The policy was, Mr. Payne, at first, that if they were not doing their work, they would go in with it would be put in as an unexcused absence. And then we all sat down, we discussed it, and we changed that and decided, we're going to go ahead and code them as being present D, and even if they were or were not doing the work, they would be coded as a D. But if they were not doing the work, it would be reflected in their grade. And they know that. Does that make a little better?
Yeah, because, I know
It's confusing.
you take a first grader, they might do all the work, but then they forget to do that submit at the end of the
Right.
day. And then you catch it 2 days later, and you hate from the.
Right,
you
but
count
that does
absent.
not impact their attendance.
Okay.
Any other concerns? So we going back to school Monday,
Back to school.
Ms. Reese?
We'll try it again.
Give you an opportunity to.
I'll support what the board decides.
Okay. Well, and like I say, I think it's so important what the school system and what the parents too and students are doing, that it's keeping us safe, because we've seen that big outbreaks on people and close things, and I wouldn't say danger, but the concern is still there that, we need to keep up with. And I think that rather than us meeting every 2 weeks, is it okay if we go back to the regular board meetings? And then either Dr. Simcox can notify us that she feels like we need to meet, or if any of the board members feel like that there's an issue, they can ask and we can have a meeting in between times. Is that okay?
Yeah, it sounds fine with me.
Because she's given us pretty good updates and keeping us posted, so if there's a concern, then I think we can raise that concern. Okay.
Sure.
All right, just want to make sure we were good on that. All right, so for anybody watching, we will be back in school Monday, and hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be down to that teen number and we can keep it there. Keep the masks on, keep the sanitizing, and keep everybody wear hand sanitizer and use it frequently.
One more thing, if you don't mind, and
Sure.
I've spoken with Dr. Simcox about this, so I know she's prepared to answer this. I just want everyone to know, what about a hybrid schedule? Will you explain why that is probably not going to work for us?
Well, really with the hybrid schedule, first of all, we don't have the devices to be able to do a hybrid, because the kids, we don't have all of our Chromebooks because, they are on back order from the vendor, so we're not a one-to-one system. But with doing a hybrid, not only does the kid would be home, their student would be home, let's just say we did a 50-50 hybrid. 50% of the time they would be virtual, 50% of the time they'd be sitting in the classroom. So when they would have to carry their device with them every day, we don't have enough devices for every kid to be able to do that. So, that's not really feasible for us. Worst case scenario, I would rather have a hybrid than go back to full virtual. I mean, I'm just being completely honest on that. I don't know that hybrid's going to change our numbers that much, because regardless of, if they're quarantined and they're looking at a classroom, it's still going to quarantine those kids in that classroom. So I don't know that it would change the quarantine numbers quite as much. And you would still have students having to be on virtual 3 days a week. And I can tell you, it is not as effective as sitting in front of a classroom in front of a teacher.
I've not heard many people at all say that, and I know the teachers made their best effort, and I think, the teachers I've talked to also have mentioned, I don't think virtual has worked for many people at all.
And virtual the hybrid would be harder on our teachers because they would be having to do both. And we do have teachers now, especially at the high school, that they're still having to do both, depending on the classes they take. They're still having to do the virtual kids and the in-person kids. But, we're trying to work through the issues we're having there, and we've offered several, opportunities for that. But it's just harder work on the teachers because they would still have to continue to do both kinds of platforms.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to mention too, because I've had some folks reach out to me and talk about the difficulty of what they're currently doing. And I guess my response would be it's more difficult for all of us in all of our workplaces because of COVID. And, our goal is to teach kids. And yes, this year is going to be a very tough year. And we know that. I think our board's tried to support teachers as far as the raises we gave this year, as far as the extra days that we said if you're positive that we'll pay you for. Mm-hmm. And we understand that. It's something we all have to get through and we all have to work through. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine. We can see if this will help with it. And the other thing about COVID is most of the cases are non-symptomatic. So it's very few people who actually get sick, and it's unfortunate for those who do. But okay, so any other? I want to cut the conversation off before it's due. All right. Director's report?
Yes, just a reminder, Thursday is Custodian Appreciation Day, so we do want to thank all of our custodians. They work hard every day, but especially, extra hard this year because they do make sure that the rooms and hallways and cafeterias and doorknobs are cleaned, between every class change. So we do appreciate all they do. So they'll be celebrated on Thursday. Just a reminder, our next board meeting will be a week early. It's scheduled for November the 5th at 6 o'clock, so it will be in 3 weeks instead of 4 due to some meetings that are going on the next week. Do have some great news would like to share about the TCAT. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Adams. This is, I guess, another reason we really would like to be back in school next week, and he's got some great news to share with our TCAT and our auto diesel program.
That program is scheduled to open next Tuesday, and so I was very glad to hear you say that we were having school because that was contingent on being in school. If we wasn't in school, it'll be January before they start, so thank y'all. One of the things they've offered up is let our juniors and seniors be in those classes at night. So potentially if we have a junior that starts in the program now, they will graduate high school in May of 2022 and then graduate TCAT in July of 2022. So we're on track. It's going to be a great partnership, I think.
That's fantastic. And can you kind of explain for the online what the TCAT program is going to entail for Johnson County and for individuals?
Well, it's a diesel program. It should help the Herman Trucking, any of the diesel businesses. It'll teach all those fundamentals: diesel, hydraulics, air brakes, so forth. I think there's going to be an agriculture, tractor aspect to the program. It's a 20-month program. It's for adults and also our juniors and seniors. And Monday through Thursday, from what I understand, will be the nights that they meet, and then they'll have breaks which differ from what we have here in the school system. But it is 20 months, and the ones that start now, which we have about 10, that's about what they want, because they don't want to bring them in, they all graduate at the same time and then saturate the market and can't find them jobs. So they'll bring in these 10, and then in January they'll bring in some more, and then in May they'll bring in some more.
It's fantastic. Great program for Johnson County.
Excited.
Will that program go through the summer too, or?
It will. It's a year-long program, but like I say, they have a lot of breaks that we don't have, like 2-week breaks here and there. That's the thing about our juniors and seniors that are interested in the program. They're going to have to be dedicated because they're going to have to go to our school during the day and then go there at night 4 nights a week. But it's an opportunity that, you know, I don't know that a lot of high school students have.
Okay.
And then I just want to congratulate Kevin for his appointment with the TSBA directors. We're very proud of you. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Payne?
I just want to thank all the teachers and the staff, you guys. I don't know how you're doing it. Just hang in there. It's got to get better.
Ms. Reese?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody I know that you've had to work twice as hard as normal. And I know that our students want to go to school, so we appreciate you, everything that you do to make sure that they can.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. I mean, we got a tremendous group of teachers and just staff in general, the guys that clean, bus drivers. I mean, they all do an amazing job, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, is there anything else to add? Again, I want to, yes, Dr.
One
Long?
clarification, the homecoming outright has been moved to next Friday.
So everything's going to happen next
Yeah,
Friday.
Homecoming and senior night are next Friday. There is a ball game tomorrow, but it's just a ball game.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah, senior night will be before the game next Friday, and then homecoming events will be at halftime next Friday.
Okay.
But we still have the game tomorrow night, which will be live streamed. So Chase has got that up and running too. So if you can't be there, then you can log on.
We're purely digital now.
We
aren't
are.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.